Imagine walking into a casino, right?
Yeah.
You walk up to a roulette table and you just bet $100,000 on a single spin.
Yeah, I mean, most of us would never, ever take a risk like that with our own money.
Exactly. It's ridiculous. Yet, companies make that exact gamble literally every single day when they hire a new employee.
It really is a staggering inefficiency when you think about it.
Right.
We put all this immense weight on a 45-minute conversation. We're hoping to glimpse a stranger's true potential, but the underlying structure of that conversation is usually so fragile.
Oh, yeah.
It just shatters the moment the candidate walks out the door.
Which is why, today, we are bringing you the ultimate cheat code to fix that fragility.
Absolutely.
Our mission in this deep dive is to extract the core insights from Victoria Hoevemeyer's book, High Impact Interview Questions. We are completely dismantling the chaotic, instinct-driven hiring process today.
It's long overdue, honestly.
It really is.
Yeah.
Instead of that chaos, we're looking at a highly structured approach fueled by this massive arsenal of 701 behavior-based questions.
Which is a very specific number.
Right, 701. But whether you are building a team right now, or maybe you plan on sitting in the interviewee chair anytime soon, this framework fundamentally changes how human potential is measured.
The shift from instinct to evidence is just critical here. I mean, the traditional interview process is broken mostly because we don't realize what we are actually measuring. We sit down with someone, the conversation flows really well. We discover we both passionately support the same, obscure indie band.
Oh, I've done that.
Right. And our brain immediately sends a signal saying, wow, this person is brilliant. Hire them.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because relying on that gut instinct is essentially like a doctor prescribing you heavy medication based entirely on whether they like your haircut.
That is exactly it.
Right. Rather than actually looking at your blood test results, it is an impulsive judgment based on surface level comfort.
Right.
And it has literally zero correlation with the actual demands of the job.
That analogy hits the nail on the head. You are fulfilling a temporary emotional need for a pleasant social interaction, right? You're not evaluating a structural need for your organization.
Yeah.
So the antidote Hoevemeyer provides is this two-pronged approach. First, structured interviews, and second, competency-based behavioral interviewing.
Okay, wait, let's pause right there. Because the phrase competency-based behavioral interviewing sounds like HR jargon bingo.
It does sound a bit dense, I'll admit.
Yeah, for anyone outside of human resources, we definitely need a working definition here. What exactly is a competency in this context?
Good question.
Are we just talking about hard skills like, knowing how to code in Python? Or is it soft skills like patience?
Well, it's actually the intersection of three things. It's knowledge, skill, and behavior. So knowing how to write Python, that's a skill, but the competency of, say, technical problem solving, that includes the skill of writing Python, plus the knowledge of system architecture, plus the behavior of remaining calm and methodical when the servers crash at 3 in the morning.
Oh, wow. Okay, I see the difference.
Yeah, it is the holistic ability to deploy your skills effectively under actual real-world conditions.
So we aren't just looking for what they know. We are looking for how they actually act on what they know.
Precisely.
And the premise of this entire behavioral approach is that analyzing a candidate's past behavior is the absolute best predictor of their future results.
What's fascinating here is that memory retrieval is fundamentally different from imagination.
Right.
Unstructured interviews, they just love to rely on hypothetical questions. An interviewer might ask, how would you handle an irate client?
Which seems like a normal question, right?
Okay.
It seems normal, sure. But when you ask that, you are just testing a candidate's theoretical knowledge of best practices. Literally anyone can invent a perfect conflict-free fantasy in their head where they, calm the client down with a single brilliant sentence.
Right, it's fiction. But when you ask for behavioral evidence, something like, walk me through a specific time you had to deal with an irate client who threatened to cancel their contract, you force them out of their imagination.
Exactly. You force them into their memory.
And you really can't fake the messy details of a real Tuesday afternoon when everything went wrong. You either lived it, navigated it, and learned from it, or you simply didn't.
Yeah, by demanding a narrative of past performance, you strip away all that hypothetical polish. You see their actual combination of training, instinct, and quite frankly, endurance under pressure. But gathering this evidence requires really meticulous groundwork before the candidate even logs onto the video call or walks into the lobby.
Right. Which brings us to the pre-interview prep. Because you can't just, skim a resume in the elevator 5 minutes before the meeting.
Well, I've all seen people do it, but no, you shouldn't.
The source material is very adamant about defining crystal clear job criteria first. Because if you don't define the exact competencies the role requires, you can't possibly build the right questions to hunt for them.
Exactly. A lack of defined criteria creates an evaluative vacuum.
What do you mean by that?
Well, when interviewers don't have a rigid standard to measure against, they naturally default to the path of least cognitive resistance,
Which is what?
hiring people who think, talk, and act exactly like they do.
Oh, the similarity bias.
Exactly. It's an incredibly inefficient way to build a team because it artificially narrows your talent pool. Thorough preparation forces you to measure candidates against the needs of the job, not the personality of the interviewer.
Which makes the initial telephone screening much more strategic than I previously thought.
It's huge.
I mean, I always viewed the phone screen as just a quick pulse check. Make sure the person is still alive, still interested, and knows what the salary range is.
Yeah, but it serves a much more aggressive function than a simple pulse check in this model. A properly structured telephone screening uses a defined, non-negotiable list of topics,
Okay.
and it's designed to rapidly stress test baseline qualifications and communication skills. The whole objective is to filter out the obvious mismatches early.
That makes sense.
Right, because if a candidate cannot clearly articulate their basic qualifications over a 15-minute call, advancing them to an in-person interview just wastes hours of cumulative executive time later on.
So they pass that initial filter. Now we move to the core of the preparation, which is creating the interview guide.
Yes.
This is a structured document divided into specific sections, all based entirely on those competencies we defined earlier. And the rule here is absolute standardization.
Completely absolute.
Every single candidate must be asked the exact same predetermined questions.
Without standardization, you literally cannot accurately compare the data.
See, I have to challenge the reality of executing this in the room, though.
Okay, let's hear it.
If I am sitting across from 5 different human beings, reading the exact same list of predetermined questions like I'm a robot executing a script, doesn't that completely destroy the candidate's experience? I mean, it removes the natural warmth of a human conversation.
This raises an important question, and it's actually the fear of sounding robotic that is the #1 reason managers abandon structure and just revert back to their gut feelings.
It feels uncomfortable.
It does. But let's look at what natural warmth actually produces in an unstructured interview. A free-flowing conversation heavily favors the charismatic extrovert. It favors the person who is simply good at chatting.
So in an unstructured format, I might walk away rating candidate A as a phenomenal project manager just because we spent 10 minutes laughing about a shared hobby and the banter was great. Meanwhile, candidate B, who might be a logistics genius, but is slightly more introverted, gets penalized because the conversation felt a bit stiff.
And that is a profoundly inaccurate way to assess project management skills. Standardization guarantees that candidate B gets the exact same opportunity to showcase their logistics brilliance as candidate A.
That's a really good point.
And as for the delivery, structure does not require a monotone robot voice. You can smile, you can lean in, you can set the stage.
Right. You can just be normal about it.
Yeah, you just say something like, "We have a structured set of questions today to ensure we cover all your core skills fairly."
Yeah, that's good.
And research shows candidates actually report feeling highly respected by this approach because they recognize they are being rigorously evaluated on their professional merit, not their small talk abilities.
That reframes it perfectly. You are providing a fair trial, not a cocktail party.
Exactly.
So we have the guide. We understand the need for structure. It is time to deploy the actual questions. And this is where Hoevemeyer's massive library of 701 sample questions comes into play.
It's an incredible resource.
The sheer volume emphasizes the need for precision. You don't just ask generic questions. You tailor them strictly to the role.
Right, because the wording of these questions is the actual mechanism that unlocks the behavioral evidence. You are engineering prompts that make yes or no answers basically impossible.
Let's actually dig into that library and look at some examples because the contrast is wild.
It really is.
An unstructured interviewer might ask, "Are you detail-oriented?" Which is a terrible question because the only logical answer is yes.
Obviously, yeah. Nobody says, "No, I'm terrible at detail."
Right. But one of the behavioral alternatives from the source material is, walk me through a specific instance where you caught a critical error that everyone else on the team had missed.
Notice the mechanics of that question. It requires a specific setting, a specific action, and it deliberately isolates the candidate's individual contribution away from the group.
Yeah, it's very targeted.
Or consider how managers usually evaluate leadership. A standard question is, how do you handle conflict?
Right. Another hypothetical.
Exactly, it invites a fantasy. But a competency-based alternative is, tell me about a time you had to enforce a company policy that you personally disagreed with.
Oh, man, that is a fantastic question.
Isn't it?
It tests loyalty, communication, diplomacy, and emotional intelligence all at once.
Yeah.
You are literally asking them to provide a narrative of friction.
Yes.
But even with a brilliant opening question like that, the candidate's first response is almost never the whole truth.
Bro, it rarely is. Candidates practice their narrative.
Right, they rehearse.
Exactly. The initial response is the polished, rehearsed version of events designed to make them look as flawless as humanly possible. If you just accept the first answer and move on to the next question, you are only collecting surface-level data.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because this introduces the secret weapon of this entire methodology, the follow-up question.
Yes, the follow-up is everything.
Think of the candidate's initial answer like a beautifully formatted, glossy resume. The follow-up questions are the magnifying glass you use to read the invisible fine print hidden between the lines.
That's a great way to picture it.
You are intentionally zooming in on the blurry parts of their story.
Because the follow-up is where the actual interviewing happens. Everything else is just the setup. The source material outlines how follow-ups serve distinct, highly strategic purposes.
Like what?
Well, the first is clarifying the we versus the I. Candidates love to hide behind the collective success of a team.
Oh, for sure.
If they say, we successfully launched the new software ahead of schedule, the mandatory follow-up is, when you say we, what was your specific individual contribution to that launch?
It forces them to claim their exact territory. Because we is a very comfortable place to hide if you just, sat in the corner taking notes while someone else did all the heavy lifting.
Precisely. And the second purpose of the follow-up is to extract the mechanics of the outcome. You must force the candidate to quantify the result.
Give me an example of that.
So if they claim they implemented a new efficiency process, the follow-up demands, what was the measurable impact? Did it reduce error rates by a specific percentage? Did it save capital? By relentlessly drilling down, you strip away the rehearsed veneer and observe the actual gears of how this person operates.
So you've done the prep, you've maintained the structure, you've deployed the behavioral questions, and you've used your magnifying glass to interrogate all the details.
Yep.
The interview wraps up, and the candidate leaves. But we are actually only halfway done. Because if you mishandle the aftermath, all of that structured data you just collected just evaporates.
Mishandling the data collection post-interview is where most hiring cycles just completely collapse.
Really?
Oh, yeah. You spend 45 minutes gathering highly objective behavioral evidence, and then the interview panel regroups in a hallway, and someone says, I don't know, the vibe was just off for me.
Oh, the dreaded vibe check.
Right, and suddenly all the data is discarded in favor of a gut feeling.
So to prevent that collapse, the framework demands that every single interviewer use a standardized feedback form immediately after the interview.
Immediately.
Again, it comes back to standardization. If I am scribbling notes on a napkin about their leadership style, and you are typing a spreadsheet evaluating their software proficiency, we don't even have a shared language to compare our findings.
Exactly. Fragmented data cannot build a cohesive profile. The standardized feedback form ensures that every interviewer is mathematically scoring the candidate against the exact same core competencies we defined way back in step one.
It creates a unified set of metrics.
Yes. And this unified data is what drives the debriefing meeting.
The debriefing meeting. That's where the hiring committee actually sits down to make the final decision. So how does this structure change the dynamic of that meeting? Because if everyone is looking at standardized forms, it sounds less like a casual chat and more like presenting evidence to a jury.
It transforms the meeting from an emotional debate into a data-driven trial. You go through the competencies one by one. You don't say, candidate A seems smart.
Right.
You say, candidate A demonstrated high proficiency in strategic planning as evidenced by the supply chain narrative they provided.
Let me throw a wrench in that, though.
Sure, go ahead.
What happens in the debrief when the behavioral evidence actually conflicts?
What do you mean?
Say you are evaluating a candidate for resilience. They give a great narrative where their action was incredible, they worked 80-hour weeks, rallied the team, did everything right, but the ultimate result was a total failure. The project tanked anyway.
Ah, okay.
How does a structured debrief weigh a great behavior against a bad outcome?
That is exactly where the competency framework proves its worth. You are not measuring their luck, you are measuring their behavior.
Okay.
If the competency you are evaluating is resilience and effort, the candidate scored highly because their actions demonstrated immense resilience, even if macroeconomic factors caused the project to fail.
That makes total sense.
The debriefing allows you to separate the candidate's execution from external variables. You are hiring their behavioral mechanics, not just their win-loss record.
That is fascinating. You are literally isolating their internal operating system from all the external noise.
Exactly.
And what's brilliant is that this operating system doesn't just disappear once you hire them. The final chapters of the source material focus on beyond the hire, detailing how to utilize these exact same competencies to manage the employee after they start.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it would be incredibly wasteful to build this highly accurate behavioral blueprint and then just stick it in a filing cabinet once the offer letter is signed.
Right, that would be completely pointless.
The competencies you defined for the interview should immediately become the foundation of your organizational language.
Meaning you integrate those exact behaviors into their actual performance management.
Absolutely. The behaviors you hired them for become the exact criteria for their annual performance evaluations and their personal development plans. You can even shape your entire training curricula around them. If you know that conflict resolution is a mandatory competency for your management tier, you allocate resources to design training programs that specifically elevate those exact behaviors.
Everything is connected.
Yes. The hiring process, the evaluation process, and the training process all share a single unified language.
The left hand finally knows what the right hand is doing. It aligns an individual's daily development directly with the overarching strategic goals of the organization.
That's the ultimate goal, yeah.
But I want to pivot here. Because we spent this entire time looking through the lens of the employer, setting the traps, standardizing the forms, analyzing the data.
True.
So what does this all mean if you are the person walking into the room? Let's flip the script for the listener who, maybe has an interview scheduled next week.
Knowing the internal mechanics of a competency-based interview provides a job seeker with a massive, almost unfair tactical advantage.
It really does.
You are no longer guessing what the interviewer wants. You know exactly how their scorecard works.
So if you are sitting in the lobby waiting for your name to be called, this is your cheat code. The first step is that you have to reverse engineer their interview guide before you ever walk in.
Yes, prep is just as important for the candidate.
You don't just read the job description for the list of daily tasks. You read it to decipher the underlying behaviors.
Exactly.
Like if the description mentions thriving in a fast-paced, ambiguous environment, one of their core competencies on that feedback form is adaptability.
Spot on. And once you identify those anticipated competencies, your job is to pre-package your behavioral evidence. And the source material highlights the absolute best architectural framework for delivering that evidence.
What is that?
It is called the STAR method.
The STAR method. STAR, situation, task, action, and result.
That's the one.
It is the ultimate tool for organizing your memories so that you hit every single point the interviewer needs for their standardized form without, rambling.
Rambling is the enemy.
So let's break down the mechanics of how a candidate should actually execute this.
Okay, so the S stands for situation. You must briefly set the scene and establish the stakes. Keep it concise. Something like, last quarter, our primary logistics vendor went bankrupt without warning.
Nice and quick. Next is T for task. What was your specific responsibility within that chaos? Like, I was tasked with finding a replacement vendor within 48 hours to prevent a total shutdown of our production line.
Then comes the most critical component, the A for action. This is where you explain the specific mechanics of what you did.
And do not use we.
Never use we here. What strategies did you personally deploy?
I immediately cold called 15 alternate vendors, leveraged our existing credit lines to negotiate expedited onboarding, and secured a temporary emergency contract.
Exactly. This is the behavioral evidence they are desperately hunting for. You are showing them your operating system in real time.
And finally, you close with the R for result.
The result must be concrete and ideally quantifiable. You must tie your specific action to a positive business outcome.
Something like, as a result of securing that emergency contract, we didn't miss a single day of production. And the new vendor actually ended up saving us 10% on shipping costs over the next 6 months.
Boom.
Right. Boom. You just handed the interviewer a complete, verifiable narrative.
When a candidate uses the STAR method effectively, They actually eliminate the interviewer's need to use follow-up questions at all.
That's a great point.
You have proactively provided the I instead of the we, and you have already quantified the outcome. You present as highly competent, deeply self-aware, and entirely focused on results.
You are essentially doing the interviewer's job for them.
Exactly. You are handing them the exact data they need to fill out their scorecard.
You make it mathematically possible for them not to rate you highly.
Yeah.
It completely removes all the mystery from the job hunt.
It really empowers the candidate.
So let's pull all of this together. We started by recognizing the absurdity of betting a company's future on the unstructured gut instinct interview. We looked at how defining core competencies and sticking to a standardized interview guide completely eliminates the bias of hiring based on who we'd rather, grab a coffee with.
We explored the mechanics of behavioral questions and that magnifying glass of the follow-up.
Yep.
And crucially, we examined how to protect that data using standardized feedback forms and evidence-based debriefing meetings, ensuring the final decision is logical, not emotional.
And for the job seekers, we unlocked the STAR method as the ultimate tool to showcase your past behavior as undeniable proof of your future potential. The overarching lesson here is that structure and objectivity don't kill the human element.
Not at all.
They actually protect it, ensuring that true competence is recognized and rewarded fairly.
It replaces a really stressful gamble with a reliable, data-driven process.
Which leaves us with a final, slightly provocative thought to chew on today.
Okay, let's hear it.
We spent all this time talking about how applying behavioral evidence is the most objective way to judge a stranger's potential. But what if we applied that exact same framework to ourselves?
Oh, wow.
Think about it. If you were to evaluate your own personal progress, your habits, your goals, the daily decisions you make, not based on your good intentions or your gut feelings, but strictly on the behavioral evidence of what you actually did this week.
That is a very demanding standard.
It is. What kind of candidate would you be in your own life?
It's an incredibly illuminating standard to hold oneself to, though. I mean, measuring our actions rather than our intentions is where real growth actually happens.
Something to mull over until next time. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the structure of things, keep hunting for the evidence, and we will catch you on the next one.